Hiding from the spotlight, and big, long, elongated red the hours of people, apparently and historic, opposed to secret society. There is something that was doing its way.
And whoever shut down our government's defense system. Do you believe in
And we are continuing on at the United States Air Force is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mabus.
Welcome to the Church of Mabus, everybody. It's Saturday night, and Debbie's coming into the coast and about to smack the hell out of Florida, I think. I don't know where it's going. They keep saying Florida, Texas, Louisiana. I don't know where this thing's going, but tomorrow it's supposed to rain all day. I know that much. I'm glad, though. The more rain, the merrier. That's my perfect weather, as long as the sun's not out, because it's been hot as hell here in Florida and humid. It'll still be humid, but at least when it rains, it's not as hot. Well, tonight, Christopher George will be co-hosting with me from Second Sight, New York City. Shout out to Chris. You there, Chris?
I'm here. What's going on, Jeff?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling. That's about it. It's the weekend, and pretty much just waiting for this storm to hit. I don't know when it's going to hit, but I don't even know if it's going to hit us. My news station here says it's supposed to hit us, and then I see the ABC, and it says it's supposed to hit Texas. I don't know where it's going to hit. I guess where they don't know either, probably, until it hits, I guess.
we got hit pretty hard yesterday. We had crazy thunder, lightning like I haven't seen in... I can't remember the last time I saw lightning in New York the way we saw it yesterday. So we got hit pretty hard yesterday, but I think what you guys are getting is going to be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's going to rain pretty hard for a while, at least for a few days, hopefully. Perfect horror movie weather, and love that. Well, first off, I'm going to tell you who our guest is tonight. I wanted to talk about one other thing, and then we'll get to our guest. Tonight's guest is Father Sebastian. We're going to be talking about his books, Vampire Magic, The Grimoire of the Living Vampire, and Sanguinomicon. Hopefully, I'm from Georgia, so I have to be careful and not mess up things too bad. The Lexicon of the Living Vampire. Father Sebastian, there's a foreword by Constantinos. I love Constantinos, even though he ignores my interview requests, but I still like him. I've read him since like high school. There's a foreword to his book and Father Sebastian's first book. And then, of course, his newest book from Red Weiser. I've been interviewing guests for Red Weiser for about 2 months now, is Vampire Magic. So we're going to get into that lifestyle and his books pretty heavily, and it's going to be a hootenanny of a time. But first, National Geographic contacted me this week, and at first I felt special until I realized they sent that email to a bunch of people. But anyway, this show called Chasing UFOs with National Geographic is supposedly the SETI WOW signal that hit back in, I forget the year, the 70s or something. There's some, maybe a different year. I always mess up years. But they got some kind of signal from space, right? And it was supposed to be special, called the WOW signal or something. And then I'm sure, I don't know if the government suppressed it and then it finally came out later or what. But anyway, this show's a new show that starts soon. I don't know exactly when. It's called Chasing UFOs, or UFO Chasers. And basically they're getting all these people on Twitter to compile a giant message full of messages to send into outer space. So extraterrestrials will hear it. Which, of course, I think there's extraterrestrials, but I still find it kind of humorous. What are these people going to say to these extraterrestrials, come save us from the Republicans. I'm just
Or
kidding.
come save us from the Democrats.
Uh-oh.
That was a joke.
Yeah, but I don't know what they're going to say, but I'd like to read all the messages. I find it kind of humorous. It's amusing, to send a message to space from everybody or whatever, but it's kind of a joke. I just don't see it having any outcome whatsoever. I honestly, I think it's neat. It's kind of cool and everything, but, I don't think the aliens, I think they're already here. They've been here. They live upon us multidimensionally. They've been here since before biblical times, and they had part in our creation on some level. My whole theory, I'm into the ancient astronaut theory, God's an alien, all that stuff. So, I also think if aliens need to step up their game a little bit on some level, and right now would be a really good time if they're going to. The good ones, anyway. If they're going to do something, right now would definitely be the time to step up the game, because it seems like we're right on the edge of oblivion right now in our whole society. So, Christopher, what do you think about this National Geographic send a message to space thing?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool, but is anything really going to come of it? And truthfully, if aliens did get these messages and somehow we found out about it, would the government let us know about it? I mean, probably not. I think it's a joke.
No. Yeah. The government ain't going to let us know about anything. Even if they got a message back, they would suppress it.
Yeah, without a doubt. We wouldn't know. Nobody would know.
Exactly. And it's a cool thing. I'm curious to what the messages say. They're all probably pretty corny,
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they sent an email out pretty much, asking me to do something on my examiner, and I did it. And, it got a lot of hits, so, it was fun, a fun little thing to do, but I don't have much faith in it doing much, Like most people are sitting back right now, treating the earth like an ashtray. I'm not going to name any particular religions, but I'm waiting for, a new earth to come while they treat the earth like an ashtray from Superman. So I just don't see it happening, so it kind of fits into that whole aliens are going to save us, or some kind of icon's going to come from outer space and save us from treating the world like an ashtray and give us a new earth kind of thing, which I just don't buy it. I don't think it's going to happen, but, hey, if it does, great. Anyway, I just don't see it happening. But, yeah, the National Geographic thing is, the link's in the chat room right now. You can go to some website. Oh, I know where you can go to read more about it. You can go to churchofmabusradio.com, and if you look up top, Florida Paranormal Examiner, click that, and you'll see it in my list of articles. You can click that, and there's some site called Wow Signal something or another, and you can go there and see more about it and all that stuff, and find out how to send a message to outer space to the aliens. And what if aliens answer and they're like giant evil reptilian overlords who want to suck our souls out of our bodies? I mean, it could backfire too, like the Stephen Hawking situation.
Well, if that happens, I'm hiding behind Stephanie. I'll be fine.
Yeah, Stephanie will whoop their ass.
She's no joke.
But, yeah, it's amusing, but I don't have any faith in anything good coming from it. I don't think any aliens are going to come save us at this particular point. Even though it'd be nice, and if they're going to, right now it'd be a good time, definitely. Before Mitt Romney gets in. I'm just kidding. That was for joke. But anyway, let's get to our guest. Father Sebastian, are you there?
I am. How are you tonight?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing better than usual. Been a few rough weeks, but I'm finally back on my game a little bit, sort of.
You guys are talking about some pretty off-this-world stuff here.
Yeah, so what do you think about people sending a giant message into space for aliens to hear it?
will say is no comment. I'd like to see National Geographic do National Geographic stuff and let the Alien Show do the Alien Show.
Yeah. Let's stick that to the History Channel. They're trying to compete with the History Channel with Ancient Aliens, I think, on this one.
Yeah, right. But I mean, the History Channel should be doing History Channel stuff, not alien stuff. I mean, it's you see all these. You gotta. History Channel is supposed to be a History Channel, not an alien channel. But I guess they ran out of Hitler video. I think it's called the History Channel, the Hitler Channel, because the Nazis filmed everything, so they had plenty of footage.
Yeah. The Ancient Aliens on there. It's okay, but lately it's kind of dark when they start talking about aliens made this monster.
I mean, if they have something scientific or actually historical, it would be really cool.
Yeah, there was a recent Ancient Alien show about aliens and this monster and the connection. I was like, okay, Ancient Aliens has finally jumped the shark on that one.
And the Loch Ness Monster. Oh, yeah, I got to about season 3.5 with that, and a friend of mine was taking it seriously. I was just like, I was like, sweetheart, that's American entertainment. And it was funny because I showed a friend of mine who's a federal attorney in Spain. He came over to get some things one time, and I showed him Ancient Alien, and he's like, "Is this serious?" I'm like, yeah, kind of. He's like, "What happened to America?" Oh my God.
Yeah, it's an amusing show. It's definitely gone to the entertainment side and jumped the shark several times now. But
the Bigfoot and aliens, that was just great.
I believe there's Bigfoot now, but
Jeffrey, come on with the Bigfoot stuff. Are you kidding me? You really believe in that?
Yeah, I think they're like a lost civilization of like Neanderthals or something like weird.
Where are they? Listen, we interviewed Kathy Strain like you did, and she had that awesome book, and I thought she was a great guest. And as far as Bigfoot went, I thought she was probably the most knowledgeable person that we ever interviewed. But I still don't believe in Bigfoot.
I believe in Bigfoot. I think there's guys walking around in big monkey suits in the forest. Yeah,
I'm kind of with you on that one, Father Sebastian, because in my perspective, why haven't we found them yet? They cannot be so friggin' smart that we can't find them. So I don't have too much to say on Bigfoot. I'm not buying it.
I believe they're the Nephilim. They're the offspring of the angels that shagged chicks and made giant baby mutants, and that's why they have magical powers, and that's why you can't find them.
I think you've been talking to Scotty Roberts too much, because he's really big into the Nephilim and Bigfoot being Nephilim, and I just don't buy it. I just don't. I want to. I would love for them to find the Bigfoot. Kathy Strain said that they have this big DNA evidence coming out soon. I'll wait to make my final judgment on when they find DNA or when they actually find the Bigfoot. But as of right now, I don't buy it.
Yeah, there were multi-dimensional alien representatives or something on History Channel.
They're from the Galactic Federation of Light.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I know what the announcement is. Well, just this real quick. I already know what the Bigfoot announcement is. I've already interviewed David Polides on my Examiner. The big announcement is that every Bigfoot DNA hair that comes back as human, and the natives say that they're people. They're just a wilder, more in tune with nature type of tribe, that their tribes have been in contact with forever, and that they're human. That's the big giant to-do about the Bigfoot DNA. I already know it. But let's get to vampires. We're getting off subject, and we need to get back to vampires.
Man, I like Bigfoot. This is fun.
What about Bigfoot vampires? I'm just kidding. But I guess, Father Sebastian, just to give you some background on me, since junior high, I've been called a vampire. So I'm not the type of person to go around saying, "Oh, I'm a vampire," whatever. But I have been labeled that many, many, many times. And I just wanted to tell my story briefly. When I was around 17 or so, I was having some pain in my nether regions in high school when I went and got exploratory surgery. I had to go to chemo, and I had testicular cancer. I lost one in the war. And anyway, during that time of chemotherapy, I started reading a lot of, like, Anne Rice, those books, Interview with the Vampire and all that stuff. And I really, I was dying. I was, the cancer had spread to my stomach and my lungs. I thought I was going to die, and I was reading these books about vampires, Interview and Vampire Lestat, and I really, grabbed onto those imagined characters to such a level. I think my imagination on some level, kind of magically, it kind of, helped me pull through what I was going through to think that I was a vampire. And then when I returned to school, I was pale as freak. I'm still pale, had no hair, I was dressed in black, I was and people called me a vampire and devil worshiper, but of course I wasn't that. And I've been called vampire for a long time. There's some other radio show hosts who I'm at war with that call me a vampire hillbilly, by the way, because I'm from Georgia. That's one of those true blood kind of things, I guess. Yeehaw, vampire hillbilly. But anywho, I guess my question is for you, what is a vampire, and how does one become a vampire on some level? It seems like a more evolved state of a human being on some level. I just kind of want to hear your interpretation of what a vampire is.
Well, my interpretation is one thing. There's very many different interpretations. But the interesting thing is over the years, as you guys don't know what I do, my main job in life is a professional fangsmith. And what that means is I'm a dental technician and special effects artist who makes custom-made vampire teeth. And what is very interesting about this job is that I get to sit face-to-face, because I make the teeth only in person. Occasionally I'll do a mail order with a dental mold. But I get to sit face-to-face with people who live a vampiric lifestyle. And I get to hear all the stories of what their interpretations of a vampire are. And I've heard every possible explanation of why they're vampires. And as fangs don't necessarily make someone a vampire, they definitely are a symbol that vampires use to kind of unify. And a lot of the vampire community, in all its glorious diversity, likes to consider fangs, for the majority of them, a rite of passage almost to kind of come closer to the community in sorts. And I'm not saying all vampires have fangs, but it's definitely kind of a tradition and a diabolical sense of humor behind it, because the fangs kind of touch someone's primal nature. They become a sex toy, and for a lot of people, and they're heavily symbolic. So they're a way of kind of bringing people together. And the actual process of getting teeth is kind of this special rite of passage where they kind of go through. And what I've noticed is that every time I sit down with someone, I get a different interpretation of what a vampire is. So one person will think it's an energy condition, another person will think it's a philosophy, another person will think it's a spiritual path, another person will think it's they're born this way. So it's really hard to put your finger on it, on what it is. But if you want to look at the actual act of vampirism, where it comes down to it, the act of vampirism is, for more or less purposes, the consumption of human life force for the purposes of sustaining the vampire. So think of it more as an action than a state of being. However, some people consider themselves, for example, I've noticed 3 main classifications of vampires. There's people that drink blood, and they feel they need to drink blood for the betterment of their health, which I kind of personally think is a contradiction. because drinking blood's pretty dangerous. There's people who consider themselves psychic vampires, who have an energy deficiency and they need to drink blood. Excuse me. They need to consume life force, or vital life force, known as prana, chi, or ki, to be able to sustain their mental, spiritual, and mental well-being. And then there's a third type of vampire, who are people who practice on an esoteric tradition, and then there's a whole diversity of people in that category. So those are the three main categories, but it is mainly an energy transference from one person, from the donor to the vampire for the benefit of the vampire. And there's all sorts of ethical systems on how it works. For me personally, it's a philosophy. I've noticed that vast majority of individuals who I make teeth for identify with the archetype of the vampire mythology, and the result is they are extremely positive people. And I call these people saber-tooth vampires because saber-tooth is the name of my business, and these are my customers. And over the almost 20 years I've been doing this job, there just seems to be an incredible commonality amongst my customers and people that come and get teeth from me. And I rarely get blood drinkers, and I rarely get psychic vampires. So it's a very unique breed of person that is from almost an international phenomenon that is a relationship between me and my customers that's fairly intimate, kind of like a tattoo artist. Is that an explanation?
No, that was good. Let me ask something as well, Sebastian. I come from the school where you don't have to dress the part. And I bring this up because a couple years ago, I am a psychic, by the way, and I do know about psychic vampires, and they drive me out of my mind. But I was on the Maury Povich show years ago. Was a vampire on the show with me, and he dressed the part. He had the cape. He had the big top hat. He had the fangs. He had white contact lenses. He had these big platform shoes, and they showed him sleeping in a coffin. They showed him drinking blood from a wine glass, not a little wine glass, a big wine glass, and come on, you can't drink that much blood because, like you said earlier, it can't be good for you. And I had words with him in the green room afterwards, saying that I thought he was, pretty much a fake, and you don't. I personally believe that if you're truly a vampire or want to call yourself a vampire, you're not going to dress like that and bring so much attention to yourself and show yourself drinking blood out of a wine glass and sleeping in coffins. Am I crazy, or do you agree with that?
I think stuff like that's ridiculous. I'm a stark realist, and seeing people like that. I mean, there's one thing about dressing up for Halloween. If you want to have a good sense of humor, and you really have a good sense of humor, you could do that as a joke. But realistically, of course, you should see some of the top hats, cloaks, and canes that my customers have. They're not like that.
Right.
It's more like the costumes you would see in Venice.
Okay.
For Carnival. I mean, I went to Venice this last year for Carnival, and the costumes that I've seen were the most incredible things. I mean, real historical costumes. There would be parties that you have to dress. I mean, like in 1798, and then the next day it would be 1892. And I mean, you had to have the costume from that era. And a lot of my customers are historical costume people. So, and they're into the vampire thing. And they're not these kids that go on TV and pretend that they're vampires. I mean, in fact, a couple of these people have come on to try to get me to make them fangs, and I'm really, really elitist with my customers. And I have a very specific type of teeth for, and there's no shortage of this wonderful, amazing spirit that comes to me and gets teeth. And if you want to check out my fangs, you can go to FatherSebastian.com and see what I make. And they're not the cheap Halloween fangs that you get it for $10 at the Halloween store.
Yeah, I did see them. I did check it out, and they are pretty impressive. I have to say that. But getting to the guy that I'm talking about, I'll say one thing to him. He was very convincing because I basically said to him what I just said to you, and I can be confrontational at times, especially when I think you're full of shit. And he stood up to me and basically looked me dead in my eyes and said, "This is my life." And he left it at that. He walked out of the green room, and he believed what he believed. So who am I to say anything about him, right?
Yeah, but the thing is you know, let's take, for example, belly dancers. Tribal belly dancers it's a new movement over the last couple of years that's really gotten popular. And there's really hardcore girls into this. And I remember aesthetic, I thought it was really beautiful. And I love the art of it. And one of my best friends, who unfortunately just passed away this last November, was one of the top tribal belly dancers in the U.S. And she was top of the top costume-wise. And I put in my dress code at one of my events, belly dance, tribal belly dance. And all the belly dancers got on my case. I was like, whoa, ladies. And basically it came down to it. There are people that take it seriously and do it well, and there's people that take it seriously and don't do it well. And you can't really sit back and judge everybody because you don't have enough energy to do that. Just focus on the people that really got their gig together and who are in agreement with what you do.
So, Father, you do these vampire balls, so I mean, a lot of people dress up like that for these parties, which I mean, that's for the party and stuff like that, right? Do they wear these costumes all the time, everything they do, or they just do it for the parties?
Well, they do it for the parties. The party's a ritual. And let me give you an example. Our dress code is not about the over-the-counter store-bought Halloween costume. And our event started in New York in the vampire scene, and we moved the main event to New Orleans in 1998. 2010, TripAdvisor did a rating of the top 10 Halloween parties in the world, and we were number one.
Ooh.
And the reason is because we don't compromise on our dress code. You can't go buy a cheap Halloween costume and come to our event. Everything is made by the people, or their historical costumes, their like real alien costumes. Like we had a guy come in wearing one of the costumes from Aliens.
Wow. And
mixed it with a Russian jumpsuit from a pilot's costume, and he was about 7 feet tall. So that's it was serious. And in fact, for example, we welcome a good sense of humor as well. One year I was sitting at my merchant table. I think it was the year 2000, and I saw this guy come up to me, and he was looking at the table, and I looked him in the eye, and I'm like, "You look just like Gary Oldman." And he goes, "I am good."
Oh, cool.
And I was like, "Dracula's at my party. This is way cool." And he looked great. I mean, our costumes are equivalent to Venetian Carnival, but with their own twist. So we've kind of built our own dress code, and our crowd knows what they're doing. So we put things called mood boards together. And if you want to see our mood boards, you can go to endlessnight.com, and you can look up under dress code, and you'll be able to see what we're talking about.
That's great about Gary Oldman. That's my favorite Dracula movie, up there with the Bela Lugosi and the old Nosferatu. Francis Ford Coppola just did a new vampire movie. It wasn't too bad. It's called Twixt, and it's got Val Kilmer in it, and it's worth the watch. It was pretty good, actually. Francis Ford Coppola did the one with Gary Oldman, but it's called Twixt. And it came out in 2011. I just saw it. It's about Val Kilmer. He's a writer, and he goes to this town, and it's got vampires in it. It's a modern day take, but it's Francis Ford Coppola, so it's definitely worth the watch. But Gary Oldman showing up, that's just freaking badass.
Let's just not talk about Dracula 3D. Please
Oh,
don't
yeah.
talk about Jack Whistler.
I haven't seen that. Yeah. I hear, that's another one of my questions about, as far as the vampire subculture, do you think the folklore actually spawned it, or does it have roots in Bram Stoker's Dracula or Vlad the Impaler, or just all of it? And also I want to add that there is a very cool supposed historical movie about Vlad the Impaler coming out. I know it's supposed to be like 300, and somehow Brad Pitt's production company's involved, and there's not supposed to be any fantasy element whatsoever. It's just supposed to be the absolute tale of Vlad the Impaler, and they're comparing it to like Braveheart and 300. I'm into Vlad a whole lot. And, yeah,
now that seems cool.
Wait. Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm good. I actually think that the vampire mythology. Okay, let's look at the realistic thing here. A lot of people go to me, oh, vampires, you're just living a fantasy. Of course we're living a fantasy. It's freaking awesome. But is it any less realistic than, I honestly think if you know it's a fantasy and you take all the power out of it, from it, like for example, if you're taking if you build a lifestyle around the powerful elements of a mythology. For example, you take the passion, the romance, the love, the survival instinct, and you take these and relate them to tangible realities. I think that's wonderful. And I just recently released a book called Vampire Virtues, where I interviewed 1,000 of my fan clients over a 10-year period. And I cross-referenced all the information, and I wrote a thing called The 99 Vampire Virtues. And each of the virtues relates to a real-life thing. And I made it very simple. I wrote a one-page article on each, and it really defines a vampire philosophy. That was not just, it's not fantastic. There's nothing in the red veils, as we call them, there's nothing esoteric. It's all real-life stuff. Like, for example, what movies do vampires like? And I only have the perspective of my fan customers, and one of the bizarre things, the number one movie that my fan customers liked was not even a vampire film. 70% of my fan customers, you want to know what movie this is?
Yeah.
Fight Club.
Fight Club. Wow.
Well, that's a pretty cool movie, but I would never think that.
Yeah, that's the great part about it. You would never expect vampires. 70% of my clients. In fact, the first film on the list that was an actual vampire film was number 4, and that was Lost Boys, followed by Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, I would say that those are probably my two favorite also.
Absolutely. And it's really fun introducing the new generation of people to Interview with the Vampire. And not Interview with the Vampire, Lost Boys. I just introduced an entire new generation of people to the movie, to Lost Boys. It's bizarre how quick time goes.
Yeah.
One of
the greats.
One of my favorite vampire movies remake with Klaus Kinski of Nosferatu. I love that one.
Did you see
great.
Shadow of the Vampire?
Yeah.
John Malkovich and William Dafoe?
Yeah, very good.
Another beauty, definitely. I love that one, too. There's some great ones out there. But, so when it comes to your fangs, let's say someone wants to order them that's far away, you have to, like, send some kind of thing for them to make a mold of their teeth and send it back to you or something?
Well, we've tried a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and it really results in you got to do it in person. And it's a real adventure. I'll give you an example of how far people have gone to get teeth. There was, 2 years ago, I had an email from a kid, and his name was Miguel. And Miguel was 19 years old, and this is one of my favorite fang stories. And I came into the shop here in Paris, and I walked in, and Miguel came in, and he was a little bit late. I was late too, so it was kind of a good deal. We went out and had a coffee, because a lot of times I'll make fangs and we'll go out and have my fang customers are incredible people, all sorts of types of people. And I'll put it like this. I've made fangs for granddaughters of presidents.
Wow.
And this kid, I made his fangs, a real good-looking guy, really good-looking. And I noticed he had a special ring on his finger, and I'm not going to say what the ring was, but it was a pretty interesting ring, which had to do with some form of, actually had to do with chaos magic. And I asked him if we could go out and have a coffee afterwards, because he seemed like an interesting guy, and I wanted to interview him, because I interview a lot of my fan clients, just for their crazy stories. And Miguel went to me, and I go, he flew all the way from Rio de Janeiro to get his fangs to Paris. And I go, Miguel, how did you fly from Rio de Janeiro to Paris to get your fangs? And he goes, well, that's an interesting story. And I'm like, I can't wait to hear it. Well, evidently, when he was 17, he was trying to get into the university. And unfortunately, his family didn't have enough money. Even though in Brazil, they actually have the ability to go to university for free in the United States. Everybody gets a scholarship as long as you pass the entrance exams. So if you don't have money, you can't take the private classes to get the entrance exams. So Miguel had two dreams, to go to university and to learn to play the violin. So one night, he's on the bus, and he lives on the outskirts of Rio. And it takes 2 to 3 hours, because Rio is a pretty big town. And he sees a bag on the bus. And he rides the bus all the way to the end of the line, where he has to unlock his bike and ride another 3 miles to get to his house. And the bus stops, the lights go out, and he takes the bag, and he opens the bag. After the bus driver gets off the bus, he opens the bag, and he finds $2,000. And he knows that if he gives the bag to the police, they're just going to keep it. So what he did was he took the money, he bought himself a violin, paid for his college entrance exams, and gave $600 to his mom. Because, otherwise the cops are going to take the money for their own purposes. University, he meets this professor who becomes his sponsor and flies him to Paris. And the other thing he wanted to do, which he thought would never be possible, is get fanged by Father Sebastian. I don't know if that's fate or what.
I wish that happened to me with $2,000. That's for sure right about now.
he saved up his money, and some of that money he used to buy his fangs. And I was blown away when he told me the story. And that's how he ended up getting fangs from me.
That's awesome, definitely. So, I guess let's try to get into the subject of your vampire magic book a little bit. For someone in your book, Vampire Magic, how would you sum it up, explanation-wise, for someone that may be interested in it on some level, exactly what type of a magic system that it is?
Well, Vampire Magic is actually the continuation of my first book with Wiser Books, which is Sanguinomicon. It's actually advanced teachings. I would say more intermediate teachings. The advanced teachings are pretty much private within our order. So what was interesting is when I was writing Sanguinomicon, the contents of Vampire Magic were not ready and perfected. So basically, Vampire Magic is the sequel to Sanguinomicon, which is the first book. And we named Sanguinomicon after the Necronomicon, which is, the mythical book of the dead from the H.P. Lovecraft books. And
that's ends with that one.
All right. So you can see it in Army of Darkness with our famed chainsaw, shotgun, loving Ash.
That's actually the first time I ever heard about the Book of the Dead was in that movie.
Well, it's really not the Book of the Dead. It's the Book of the Laws of the Dead. The Book of the Dead there's the Tibetan version and the Egyptian book. The Necronomicon basically contains, the actual mythical book contains the rituals to summon the old ones. And the book is never finished because the book that supposedly does exist was written by a mad Arab sorcerer and sage, and it is only a partial interpretation because a book is only in the astral realm, and you can never finish it. So,
interesting.
yes, and so in a way it does exist because the astral realm is made of dreams, but on the other hand, it is a mythological book. But what I wanted to say is, you know, we have two major religions in the United States, Scientology, which is obviously a science fiction religion, and Mormonism, which is another science fiction religion. So these two religions were based on pretty much fantasies that were made tangible realities. And we're very possibly going to have a Mormon president. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised in 20 years if we didn't have a vampire or satanic president.
From Planet Kolob.
I'm curious as to how many vampires there are in the world. Do you have any idea?
It depends. I mean, there's people that go through it as a phase. It's becoming more and more settled, I guess. People are identifying it. For me, it's a philosophy and a form of energy work. And it's something that you have to be born with, have, and do. However, the number of vampires, you can't really put your thumb on it because some practice it as a fetish, some practice it as a spiritual path, some people consider it a condition of energy, and then you have the psychic vampires, the traditional psychic vampires, which you talk about, you know, the energy leeches that you meet in everyday life, which are all over the place. You can't really count them because they're everywhere. I mean, how many, you know, if you want to talk about how many people have mental, you know, you can't really put your number on it. So it's this big gray area and blur. And, you know, then there's the ethical psychic vampires, which is this new movement of psychic vampires. I don't even know why they call themselves psychic vampires. But they're, you know, they're trying to identify. It's like, hey, I'm a cancer patient, so let's, you know, identify ourselves as cancer patients. Come up with a new term, you know, energy deficiency, you know, or something like that. And they consider themselves energy deficient. But they've co-opted this term that was a negative esoteric term, and I consider traditional psychic vampirism to be a psychological problem, not a esoteric problem. However,
go ahead, Jeff.
So, to me, do you think this embrace of the vampire lifestyle, or is a rejection of death on many levels for people, or for some maybe a denial of death? How does death fit in?
Well, then again, the kind of vampirism you're talking about. For example, my tradition is mainly about life and rejection of death. And with new scientific techniques like transhumanism and posthumanism and immortality, for example, transhumanism is the process of taking machines and technology to defeat death. You can go to TED.com and see dozens of videos on this subject, which is a brilliant website, which I encourage everyone to instead of watching the news about someone dying or the murder and everything, I go and I watch TED.com and I get an incredibly positive image of the future of humanity. And I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist in any way. I mean, of course, I get negative about things. And I think that my tradition, the saber-tooth tradition of vampirism, is a highly positive one. And the esoteric teachings I put in vampire magic and in the Sanguinomicon. And those are more of a intellectual perspective of all the information I've kind of gathered from making things. So,
when you talk about vampire magic, what would it be similar to? I mean, we have witchcraft, we have, you know, there's voodoo, there's black magic, there's all different forms of magic. What makes vampire magic the same or different than any other type of magic?
Well, my interpretation is more like chaos magic. And people who aren't familiar with chaos magic is basically anything goes. So you'll meet vampires that are into voodoo, you'll meet vampires that are into Santeria, you'll meet vampires that are Catholics, you'll meet vampires that are practicing pagans. And a lot of the vampire movement today tries to classify themselves as a pagan movement, which I think is extremely limiting. A vampire is free of belief and faith, so therefore they can use any belief and faith as a tool, just like a chaos magician. And I don't think a lot of people understand what chaos magic is. And they think it's all about destruction and all this stuff. It's not that. It's about freedom of belief, freedom from belief, freedom from religion, and the ability to morph whatever you want. So a chaos magician can be a Wiccan, a chaos magician can be a Satanist, they can be a Catholic, they can be a practicing Jew, they can be a voodoo, Gnostic, they can be anything. I mean, I know vampires that are Catholic priests, I know vampires that are Satanists, I know vampires that are, I know a vampire that actually runs an organization while he does astral projection, which to me is a psychological Carl Jung kind of concept. And he convinces people that he's an angel and heals people, and he gets money out of it. And in the process, he takes their energy. I mean, it's a really interesting way to look at it. But it benefits people. And I know another vampire who actually is a Christian minister in the South, in the Bible Belt. He gets up and he preaches the Bible every day. And
it's really surprising to me to hear you say that.
Well, his congregation is the source of energy.
Wow.
But I won't go below its cover because my customers trust me.
Right, of course. But that's, I mean, just the thought of that is very interesting to me. You wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you would think he's a fundamentalist, evangelist minister in the South, in the Bible Belt, but he's actually a vampire feeding off his congregation.
That's the trip, man. That sounds like an Outer Limits episode. That's wild, man.
He's really
John
cool.
Carpenter, pretty, yeah. So when it comes to the energy transference, like I've noticed, like if I'm down on my energy, I can go to there's not many places to go around here, but like Walmart. But anyway, I can go there, and it's like I don't intentionally do it, but I know being around that energy lifts my energy up. When it comes to an energy transference, how does that work? I mean, most of the time you have a willing donor, right? But, let's say you're a vampire and you just walk into Walmart and then you were down and then suddenly all that energy boosts you up. I've had that happen. It's not like I sit back and say, okay, I'm going to go to Walmart and suck all the energy out of these people. So how does that work as far as a donor and the actual energy transference process?
Different perspectives on it. You can look at it from a scientific or psychological, which we call the side, and then you can look at the esoteric perspective, which is the energy side. And the thing that vampires in my tradition realize is that there is a very hardcore, sincere perspective of rationality. But we also accept that there's possibilities of belief and faith. So, and the spirit world and whatnot. If you go into, for example, you go to a sports game, don't tell me you don't feel the energy of the crowd going cuckoo. I mean, that's a vibe. That is energy. So energy is always transferred. It's never destroyed. So you go into Walmart, people are pretty oblivious in the shop now. But if I want energy, I go to Times Square. If I want to, I'll go to a sports game. If I want energy, I'll go to a place where people are excited, like a movie theater or even a gym. And we call that ambient feeding, which means that you're taking this residual projection that people get. And you want, and the emotional state of the energy is the flavor. But you really want the life force from that. And large groups of people radiate life force. That's why a lot of vampires are performers, musicians, like going to a rock concert. I mean, I go to music festivals all summer, and I get an incredible energy. I just went to Metal Heaven, or Metalhead Hell, a 30,000-person metal festival in the middle of nowhere in France, and Guns N' Roses and Slash and Motorhead and Dropkick Murphy and all these incredible bands were there for 30,000 people because the crowd is incredible. So these performers are feeding off the crowd without doubt, and the crowd's feeding off the performance. So that's energy transfer itself. So our public or any of these examples, these people are practicing vampirism.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
you know, I'm wondering, how many, do you know of any celebrities that are vampires? And I ask you this because I've always heard that that Johnny Depp is a vampire. I don't know how true that is. I'm throwing it out there to you. If you know any, you know, in your travels that you've heard any celebrities being...
You guys are breaking up a little. I'm getting a little bit of a jump on the radio. Can you hear me all right?
I hear you fine.
Okay. It sounds like the sound system's kind of skipping a record. But let's see if it continues. I do know people who are vampiric, that are celebrities, that are not affiliated with the vampire scene directly, but I am not at liberty to say who they are.
Okay.
Just out of confidentiality. I mean, remember that a lot of customers are celebrities, they're performing artists, and very rarely do they want me to say that they have fangs or plastic vampirism.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's really, really a part of my business, the confidentiality.
I can respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been to some concerts like Marilyn Manson, Metallica, Megadeth, Korn, and definitely seen Tool in concert on DVD. I've never been to them in person. I'd love to go to one in person. But yeah, I definitely know there's an energy transference. I've noticed it with the Doors, with Jim Morrison, when I've seen him on, watch videos and of him in concert, and you can definitely tell he's tapping into all kinds of energies from the audience and from elsewhere. But yeah, there's definitely an energy transference in so many different things. But definitely interesting. Joe, are you there? I don't see you giving us any countdown for break. Where's Joe? Is he asleep? Because it's almost at the hour. Usually I see a little minute countdown from Joe for a 10-minute break. Okay, yeah, it's break time. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back with Father Sebastian on the subject of vampires. I titled this show Vampire Tendencies, and Christopher George is co-hosting, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. So be ready. We shall return.
How do I
States Air Force is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mavis.
Welcome back to the Church of Mavis, everybody. Just a quick rundown of our guests next week is Freeman Young and J.P. Smith. Tree Peeker's Easy Guide to Sasquatch Encounters. I know Christopher's going to love that one.
Hey, listen, I told you we had Kathy Schrainley, I think 2 weeks ago, and she was a fantastic guest. I mean, I don't agree with with the whole Bigfoot thing, but listen, she was convincing. I'm sure that there were people listening to that show that didn't believe and left believing. So, I mean, I'm not against it. I just don't buy it completely.
Well, her whole book's Native American stories of them interacting with them, folklore. So, I think there's a paranormal element to them. That's why there's no proof of them. But that's a whole nother show. But just a quick rundown of July's guest, Dr. Amit. He's friends with Deepak Chopra. That's right, friends with Deepak Chopra, Dr. Amit. God Isn't Dead, and he's the quantum doctor. That's going to be July 7th. July 14th, Lyle Blackburn, the Beast of Bogey Creek. He's in a band called Ghoul Town, and he wrote a book about the Beast of Bogey Creek. And then July 21st, Thomas Hughes. He's a Sasquatch whisperer.
Oh, God.
He actually claims he's hanging out with Sasquatch and has some insight on Sasquatch and believes they are another planet. And Lyle Blackburn and Thomas Hughes, Andy Coleman, Mothman photographer, is going to be hosting with those sites. And if you know Andy, he wrote the Mothman books. He just had a book come out called Mothman Shrieks. He's worked with Dennis Hopper when the great Dennis Hopper was alive, and David Lynch and the Butthole Surfers. Andy Colvin will be with us for those two Squatch shows because Andy Colvin's assembling a Sasquatch book based on our interviews, and I'm writing the foreword to it. So Andy Colvin will be there, and then July 28th, Christopher will be back with us with Christian Day about the Witch's Book of the Dead, and that's our last show of July. And then just, we have God, where is he at on this list? In August, there's ex-CIA's coming on the show. I think his name's, Robert David Steele. That should be interesting. I have no idea. I got to read his book. What am I going to ask an ex-CIA guy? That should be interesting for sure. So, you can find out more about our guests at churchofmabusradio.com. And let's get back to our guest question. The first hour was darkly wonderful, so let's get down to the last 50 minutes of the show. Father Sebastian, are you still there? Uh-oh. Father Sebastian, are you still there?
Chris,
are you still there?
I'm here.
Hello?
Was there?
Are you there, Father Sebastian?
Hello?
Okay, he's still there, right?
I'm here.
Okay, just making sure. I got worried there for a second. All right, well, let's get into vampire magic. There's some pretty heavy questions I would like to discuss about it, and definitely, I guess my first question, I noticed that the word chaos magicians in your book a lot, and, I don't really know a lot about chaos magicians, but I find it interesting what I do know. And I noticed that there's Luciferian elements in the magic. So how does that, these subjects or these forms of magic fit into your vampire magic?
Well, Luciferianism is not a primary focus. It is one of several paradigms, including, Christian magic that are involved. Chaos magic, as I explained earlier, is kind of the manipulation of belief. So therefore, you can have vampires of every possible spiritual system or magical system. So you can have Discordian vampires, you can have voodoo vampires, you can have Norse Aristu vampires that practice the Viking tradition. You can have Egyptian vampires, Sumerian vampires. It really doesn't matter what system they use. It really is up to the individual vampire. So, but belief is a tool according to chaos magic. So it's more of a manipulation of belief. So a vampire can basically use and manipulate belief systems according to their own needs. And that's the foundation of vampire magic, according to the elements of vampire magic as described in the book Vampire Magic.
Now, when you do this magic, I know, there's a big difference between white magic and black magic, and one of the main things is when you do a spell, say you're doing a love spell, if you put the person's name in the spell that you want to fall in love with you type of thing, that's crossing the line into black magic. What's the rules, basically, with vampire magic? I mean, if you put a name to something, does that make it a darker spell than otherwise?
We don't define ourselves by color. We find that limiting. Black magic, white magic, green magic, that's kind of limiting. It's really your intent. If you want to hurt someone, you hurt somebody. I mean, it's like a gun. Are you going to use it to hunt? Or are you going to use it or let me give you a better example. It's like a car. Do you want to use the car to get from point A to point B, or do you want it to use it to run someone over? And it really depends on the intent of the user. So the concept of black and white magic is more of a common New Age perception versus an actual form of magic. I mean, it really depends on the intent of the person. If you want to hurt somebody, then you go ahead and hurt them. If you want to not hurt them, then, it really depends on the individual. Some people consider black magic to be this negative thing. I mean, for example, if you want to use a Christian analogy, if someone is, black magic is undiscovered science. So, for example, Galileo and his philosophy of, discovering those different planets would be, according to the Catholic Church, black magic at the time. But now today it's science. I consider any scientific fact to be that is misunderstood. Many people consider magic, and specifically black magic, because it's simply not understood. However, modern perceptions consider black magic to be harmful, but the vampire doesn't prescribe the colors. The vampire prescribes to the will and the intent of the magic being used.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, so there's a chapter on vampire lycanthropy. I'm interested in exactly what you mean by that, and what is the rite of Canis Lupus?
Well, the rite of Canis Lupus is more of an exercise, and as you know, vampires are the werewolves in many mythologies, and this whole vampire versus werewolf thing is actually a recent event that started with Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game, and has progressed into Twilight, with the werewolves versus the vampires. And basically, lycanthropy is the ability to shape-shift from a human shape into an animal shape. However, what we do is we consider it more of a meditation of taking that totem animal and shape-shifting on a dream level versus a physical level, because that's fairly impossible. So using the rite of Canis Lupus is basically an exercise in meditation on a totem. For example, doing foxes and ravens, and you can look at Native American traditions. What we do is we use shape-shifting on a dream level. Exactly. But the wolf is the most common and most popular archetype of an animal that is used, because the wolf is mysterious and it's a predator. And it's really funny because in December I went out and spent an afternoon with some real wolves in the wolf sanctuary in Austria. And wolves are pretty not dogs. A lot of my Wiccan friends are like, I want a wolf as a pet. And I'm like, yeah, right. Wolves are not dogs. They will kill you if you don't feed them enough or socialize them enough. Wolves are not pets. They should never be a pet. And they need to be respected as a wild animal. So this mysterious creature, which we look at as a wolf, which all dogs are descended from wolves, believe it or not, a Chihuahua is a wolf, is something that's really remote in a lot of ways, because, you know, the most common pet we have is dogs, but a wolf is a wild animal, and it's very mysterious and very spiritual, and wolves are very emotional. They're very attuned to emotions because they need to know the emotions of their prey. And they're also highly social, just like humans. That's why we can relate to this animal very well. So it really resonates as an actual animal that we can relate to very much, but it's still extremely distant and mysterious. So as a totem, it's a perfect example and a perfect role model. And wolves have been mysterious throughout centuries. So relating to this animal, and in between humans and wolves are dogs. So using the wolf as a totem animal and something that we really love and we fear and we respect is the perfect archetype for something to shapeshift into.
Gotcha. Yeah, the wolf is definitely, I have a wolf tattoo that's pretty cool. It's by the same guy that did my Dracula tattoo back in the early 20s. And definitely, there's a connection between the vampire and wolf, and I guess it's tried to be, people tried to kind of smudging it out with the whole werewolf thing, when really, I guess, the wolf thing kind of goes back to Bram Stoker and that tale.
I'm getting a pretty bad connection, gentlemen.
Can you hear me now?
I'm hearing you all.
It may be because of where I'm at with
Yeah.
the cell phone coming in. So I guess let's get to the next question. How about yours? What is their purpose to a vampire?
Well, servitors and familiars are basically an example of something called a, think of a kind of like an app for an iPhone. You create the app to do a specific purpose, and it fills a specific role. So the programmer, the vampire, is using energy and willpower and belief to basically create a app that will serve a purpose. For example, you want a servitor that will protect your house, or you want a servitor that will collect certain forms of information. They're basically mini.
Hello? Uh-oh. Christopher, are you there?
Oh, yeah, now I got you. I lost you there for a minute.
Father Sebastian, are you still there?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, hold on. Joe, I think we lost Father Sebastian. Shit.
Hello, guys.
Okay, you back?
Hello?
Hey, are you back? I don't know what happened. We accidentally dropped you, but we were on the subject of familiars and servitors, if you want to get back to that subject. I'm not sure what happened. I think Skype accidentally dropped you.
I think I lost him.
Are you still there, Father Sebastian? Oh.
We're having some technical difficulties, people.
Technical difficulties, it happens.
It sure does.
So what do you think, Christopher? Are you,
Well, I'll tell you one thing. On the break we were talking about bad guests, and I have to say, I think Father Sebastian is an excellent guest. I think he's answered all of our questions, and I think he's been a great guest so far.
Yeah, we were just having some Skype trouble. Can you hear us okay now?
I can hear you a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'm not sure why Skype's acting funny. There's no telling with Skype. It's just one of those things. But I guess if you wanted to finish on what you were talking about, servitors and familiars, and how that plays into effect with a vampire.
Servitors and familiars are like, I would consider them the equivalent of an app on an iPhone. You create them with willpower, and you create them with life force to serve a specific purpose and fulfill a specific role. So, for example, if you want to do you want the servitor to fulfill a purpose like protecting your house or gaining and gathering information or protecting a certain item or box, or you want to bomb the servitor to an item. They basically fulfill the role of creating a connection and giving an identity and a little miniature spirit to that item you want to create. For example, you want to have a figurine and give it intent and ideas. You can throw energy at it and form it and give it kind of almost its own personality.
Is it kind of like I've seen a book on creating like your own entity to do stuff or something like that? I forget what the book was called, but where you like make your own astral entity and it does stuff for you, kind of like a golem or something like that, but astrally.
A golem is a good example of a servitor. A golem is basically a physical being, or a physical sculpture that a servitor is attached to. So you're basically giving an inanimate object a form of identity in life. So you can name and start giving it purpose, and as you build that and you tell other people about it,
Did you drop again?
And yep, I think we dropped him again. And just when he's getting into it, too.
I know, it's perfect.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, too.
Can you hear me okay?
No, not really.
I don't know what's going on. It must be Skype or just a connection. Everything was going great until the last 30 minutes when we came back from break, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. He's in France, I'm in Florida, you're in New York, so there's no telling, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, we were talking a little earlier before when we lost him that, that he is a good guest, and, you never know what you're going to get with a lot of these people that we bring on, and...
Wow, we have a good connection, it looks like.
Oh, we got him again. Here we go.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's signing on and off.
Yeah, like I said, like I told him, he's in, Christopher's in New York, I'm in Florida, you're in France, so who knows what's going on. Somebody said in the chat room it's aliens hacking the satellite, so...
Did you guys get my explanation of servitors?
Yeah, we got it. Very good.
Very good. I guess the next question is sex. Is that one of the biggest ways to do energy transference? Because I've definitely noticed when it comes to sex that definitely
well, vampires obviously have a very big fondness for sex.
Definitely.
Generally the vampires that I've met love sex.
Well, I'm feeling a little bit completed right now.
Form of magic that's very efficient.
What'd you say, Christopher? You're feeling a little randy.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little energy depleted right now, and I see Stephanie over here. So, I am feeling a bit randy.
All right, then.
I think I'm going to have me some energy transplant in a few minutes.
Well, in the reality, sex magic is a powerful tool of focusing energy. And it doesn't necessarily, one misconception a lot of people have about sex magic is you have to have sex. Actually, abstinence can be a very strong form of sex magic. And it's known as, a lot of people call it red magic, because what you do is you avoid sex, you avoid release, and you build up energy, and then at one point you do release it, and you put that energy into a focus. For example, you want a better job, or you want to, put energy into some form of intent of achieving a goal, or such as writing a book. Sex magic can be actually the absence of sex. So that's another perspective that a lot of people don't get. Is
I don't think I like that too much.
Well, you don't do it forever. You might do it for a couple days or a project, because one thing that I've seen is creativity and sex energy are very similar, very tied together. I have sexual relation, which is called a sacred marriage, where a couple gets together and it's either simulated or actually focused energy, where the couple will orgasm together and release the energy into a specific focus, which does take a lot of practice, which is kind of good. But both parties have to be really focused on that. There's also feeding from sex. You can take sexual energy from your partner and turn it into life force. Take that life force and feed off them. I know also sex magic can be done through erotic dance. There's many times that I've seen many a stripper vampirize people by sexually stimulating them, raising their energy, and taking that energy. So there's many different ways that sex magic can work.
So with sex magic, if you're abstaining, and let's say like you want to write a book or manifest something, do you just abstain or not sound like perverted, or do you like masturbate and think about winning the lottery, or how does that work exactly?
Typically, yes.
We're going from talking about vampires to masturbation now? Come on.
Well, general sex magic in general. We're not talking just about vampire sex magic. Remember that a lot of the techniques that vampires do are simply magical techniques that are used in a system. So one thing that is also interesting about vampires is that the seduction of using the vampire archetype is a very powerful tool for collecting energy. And using the vampire archetype, wearing fangs, you should see some of the people that I've, the response that I'll make a pair of fangs for a girl, and it will turn people on. I mean, it's incredible. So the primal nature that comes out when people wear their fangs is kind of like wearing a mask, and the cultural ramifications of wearing a mask. So when you put a mask on, that's why Halloween is so popular, or tribal relations. When you get into tribal dance and you look at African cultures or primitive cultures, when they wear a mask and it's around, they're bringing out certain things. Fangs culturally have a very powerful effect on people. And this effect will be all of the social conditioning, kind of like Pavlov's dogs. You ring the bell and the dogs will drool after a while. With our modern culture, all of these vampire archetypes in the last 200 years, from Dracula to Lestat to Akasha, the vampire archetype is so diverse, and it's extremely sexual. So the fangs represent, in a way, a penis. And if you look at the vampire, in the beginning of the movie where Lestat took Louis, his fangs got bigger. They didn't retract or, go down. They actually are phallic and a phallic symbol. So Dracula's fangs would retract and expand, kind of like a switchblade, or while Lestat's fangs would actually just get bigger when he got hungry, and they become more subtle when they didn't. So in effect, they're kind of like a penis.
Man, just in your profession, I have a thing for goth chicks and vampire chicks, so you must come across some you just can't even imagine. Then your parties and stuff, my God. That must just be like a party in the underworld, like heaven. Man.
How beautiful some of these women are.
I'm sure. I could imagine. My God.
Well, the vampire ball's got to get kind of crazy, I would think. And how long does that go on for?
Well, it depends. I mean, we're doing parties this year in Berlin, in New Orleans, New York. We just finished the Paris event. And I'll tell you, French vampire girls are pretty crazy. We're doing an event with another club in London at the end of August, which is going to be a lot of fun because the British people are very different. But each Endless Night party has a very different vibe. And what's awesome is our crowd, because of my Fang customers, I call them Clan Sabretooth. All you got to do is get fangs and you're in the clan. And all sorts of different people come together. And my Fang customers are kind of tribal. They really relate to each other. And, you know, going through what we call the rite of the mirror, it's an initiation into the clan. So you go to Amsterdam and you'll meet members of the clan there, and then you'll go to Berlin or New Orleans or New York, or we had one in Barcelona and Prague. Prague was incredible because it was a small event, and I had customers. Last year we had a party at Moulin Rouge in Paris, the real Moulin Rouge, and we had people from 28 countries that I had made fangs for, from Croatia, America, Russia, Canada, Australia, of course France, Spain. It was just incredible, and it was like when people have gotten fangs from me and they get together, all these different interpretations of vampires kind of merge together and result in this tribe. And it was incredible. I remember sitting at a dinner table 2 nights before the ball, and I have a private social network just for my Fang customers. And you have to get fangs, and I take everyone's email, and I invite them to the social network. And over the years that I've been making fangs, I can count 57 children that have been born from people meeting who have gotten fangs from me. So actually, these are my godchildren in a way. Default godchildren. I mean, these are actual, real, living, breathing humans from, for example, you'll, in 1997, I had made fangs for this girl at noon, and she drove, she was at 6 o'clock, she had come into New York City to get fangs at my Fang shop in the Halloween Adventure shop, and she got fangs at noon, and left the city at 6 o'clock to drive home out to New Jersey, got in a car accident, and like a little fender bender on Route 80, got out of the car, the other person got out of the car, and it was another person I made fangs for that day. Think of the synchronicity. And they ended up getting married and having 3 kids. And then I just made one of those kids' fangs last year.
That's not true, it is like a mask.
And you would not believe the stories I have. I mean, I had a little Chinese girl who came from Beijing. Her father was one of the Chinese ambassadors to the UN. She got into Halloween because she was going to school in New York. She got a taxi, and this taxi driver wouldn't let her out of the taxi. And, you know, in the New York taxi, you have a little window where you pay the guy. She put fangs in, opened the window, and started screaming at him, "Let me out." And he freaked out. He locked her in the taxi, wouldn't let her out of the taxi. And he was being a real dirty old man. And little Chinese girl, 19 years old, she just growled at him, said, "Let me out now." And he goes, the devil, the devil, the devil, the devil. And he let her out of the taxi. So from all of these experiences, I've collected all the knowledge of my FANG customers and Vampire Magic and the knowledge that's there is a mix of their experiences and actual real results in their spiritualities. It's really incredible, some of the stories I hear from my customers. And the real results. You know, we're not talking about fantasy here. We're talking about real, tangible results that people get. And these people go, and everything in my books are real, tested, tangible results. They're not just fantasies.
Yeah.
So,
And,
imagine all these people with all these experiences that get together and share these stories with each other in the ball and before the ball. Because we have a lot of times we'll have an event before the event, the actual ball, like a cocktail party or a meetup. And these people will spend 2 or 3 days together, and they'll walk down the street, they'll bump into each other, and through the social network, we've formed a real community. So when they come to the ball, they're doing it all up. I mean, they get dressed up, they make their costume, but there's real symbolism, and there's real value and depth to the party. It's just not a masquerade event. It's real culture.
So, one question I had, and, you know, a lot of people, like some people in the chat room said there's no such thing as vampires, yeah, whatever, but, this is an image or an archetype that's been around in folklore for, like, thousands and thousands of years. I mean, even in the Bible, there's weird blood drinking stuff, and in other ancient, you know, civilizations, there's the vampire thing, and there was just recently those bodies found where I guess crazy people thought they were vampires and staked them or whatever, which I don't know if they were really vampires. It's probably more likely just religious nuts killing people that thought they were vampires. Or they thought they were the witches or whatever, but I know those bodies were just found in, I think, Bulgaria or something, and people, I guess Christians did weird, crazy stuff to them, like stakes through their hearts and mouths and crazy stuff like that. So, I mean, this energy's been around forever. I mean, it's powerful. It's real, and then people are tapping into it. I mean, it's a real thing. It's energy, you know, you know. But I guess one question that I wanted to get into, how does the serpent and the dragon fit into the belief system of your magic and the vampire? Because I know of Vlad the Impaler there, he was the son of a dragon, and the serpent, you know, that's an ancient symbol from, you know, every culture to the Garden of Eden, and I know there's energy behind the dragon energy and the serpent energy, and of course in the UFO field you have everybody tripping out on the reptilian aliens who are like the new thing to hate, and the truther circles and the UFO circles, they're like the new Jews to hate and all that stuff. They're reptilians, they're the Illuminati shapeshifters and all that crazy stuff. So how does the dragon and the serpent fit into your belief system? Not that I agree that they're that, but I think they could be good reptilians if there's actually good aliens or whatever. I don't think they're all evil, but a lot of people like to label them as evil. But how does that energy fit into your belief system of your magic?
Well, let's clear one thing up, okay? The Bush family are not reptilians. I know two of them personally, and they're very cool people. GW is a kind of a bad public speaker. That's what that is. But the thing is that the dragon itself, the symbol of the Ouroboros, it represents, you know, the snake eating itself. That symbol represents eternal renewal, like the phoenix. It's a very similar symbol to the phoenix. And vampirism is about immortality, and a very strong point of immortality in the vampire archetype. And the dragon represents our primal nature. Are you familiar with the concept of the reptilian brain?
Yes. The
very core part of our brain shares the same primal nature as the reptilian. I'm talking real reptiles. And it's our flight or fight response. This very core nature is reptilian. We have the same cortex as a lizard or a reptile. And the dragon represents, in the vampire symbology, your higher self, this very primal nature of our soul. So, and physically representative in the reptilian cortex of our brain. So that primal nature and that magical nature and that higher self is where the dragon and the immortality element of it are absolute core symbolic symbols for the vampire archetype. And in the system of vampirism that I practice, that is exactly what it represents for us.
Cool. Gotcha. And, you know, the dragon, you got King Arthur and the dragon, Vlad the Impaler and the dragon, Japanese dragon lords, and there's just so much serpentine, reptilian kind of thing. Every other belief system kind of treats the serpent or as a positive thing, immortality, like the Druids and the Celts and stuff like that. Christianity's pretty much the only one that I know of that's given it a bad rap from the whole Garden of Eden thing. But and the Codicus, that's another, you know, symbol of the snake that's kind of positive regeneration, healing, and all that good stuff. And definitely that energy is definitely there, no doubt about it, and you can see it, you know, throughout culture. And I guess, Christopher, you got any questions? We're getting down to the last 10 minutes or so.
Well, I just got to say, this has been really a fun show for me. I actually had lots and lots of questions, but I think we kind of went past some of the things that I wanted to talk about. But I've just really enjoyed this whole conversation, and, you know, Father Sebastian is a great speaker and really answered every question that we threw at him, and I just thought it was a very, very good show.
Definitely, and I guess let's go ahead and close out because I know it's really late in France. And Father Sebastian, you're a great guest. Definitely enjoyed it, and I have Vampire Magic and your first book, and I want to get the other ones. What are your other books that are out that I don't have? I have Vampire Magic and then your first book. What else do you got, and what else is coming out?
You know, one thing about Vampire Magic and Sanguinomicon is they're very complex books and for the average layman. For an esoteric-minded person, they're very focused, so they're not going to appeal to the wide audience. You know, Wiser Books is a very specialized publisher, and Sanguinomicon are for a very specific perspective on vampirism. So it's good reading for everyone if they're curious about the subject. It will inspire and challenge you, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with it or find results from it. So one of the things that I decided to do was create a book called Vampire Virtues, which is a very simplistic version. And I encourage people to read that first. And the advantage of this book is it's a very simple lexicon of 99 terms that you can digest. And you can get it on Amazon. It's called Vampire Virtues, The Red Veils. And it's a book that you can read as a prelude to Sanguinomicon or Vampire Magic. It will help you understand the basics. It's also a fun book. It's not necessarily trying to dictate what vampires are. It's set to give you an example of a whole bunch of different ideas that will kind of give you another idea of what vampires are. So before Vampire Magic or Sanguinomicon, check out Vampire Virtues, The Red Veils. It's a really fun book. It's not meant to take itself too seriously because one of the vampire virtues is humor. But it gets you through all the basics. It tells you what immortality is, the concept of transhumanism, a lot of things that touch on a more modern need for vampires. So start with Vampire Virtues, The Red Veils. Then you can go to Sanguinomicon and then followed by Vampire Magic. That's the sequence of reading I would suggest. We're also coming out with a book I'm writing with my friend Mayel. She's from Amsterdam, and she's a good friend of mine. We're writing a book called Vampire Virtues, The Purple, which will be a more spiritual version, while Vampire Virtues, The Red Veils covers the tradition of the vampire archetype. Vampire Purple Veils cover the esoteric, spiritual, and magic side. That will be a complement to everything. So have fun reading them. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me or visit my website, Father Sebastian with 2 A's, IAAN.com. Find me on Facebook.
All right, yeah, I have them both, and I have to say, I've read a lot of stuff over the years. They're great, and I can definitely see if someone's not familiar with these topics on any level, they would come across as very strange, but in a good way. But some people would probably freak out, but they're definitely good books. I'm not gonna lie. I'm familiar with some of the stuff in them, so they don't freak me out as much, but they're definitely great books. So, who's the publisher of the Virtues book?
Excuse me?
Who's the publisher of Virtues?
That is published by a company called Second Sight Books in Germany. And we have an in-house publisher called Rakasha Books.
Okay, I'll check that out. They can update it as well. All right, and what's your links again if you get those, and then we'll depart. What's your link?
You can find my website at FatherSebastian.com.
All right, well, it's been a great show. We really enjoyed it, and a good combination with you and Christopher George, and had a great time, and we appreciate you doing the show, and thanks for staying up to weird hours. The sun's about to come up, so you better hit the road. I'm just kidding about that. I'm sure you don't have to worry about that. But thanks for doing the show, man, and take care.
Have a good night. We'll see you all.
Everybody, make sure you check out churchofmabusradio.com. Go there. Click a lot of stuff. It needs you. It loves you. It's calling you. churchofmabusradio.com. It's a pretty site. Go mingle there, baby. That's right. And next week, easy guide to Sasquatch encounters, because I believe in Sasquatch. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for listening. Anybody still there? All right, I'm hanging up.
Well, waves to you back. They're all waving to us on it. And so we've got some announcements today, too, and I wanted to give a couple little plugs for, there's a paranormal radio show. It's called Shadows in the Dark. It's hosted by Jeremiah Greer. And they are